All right, here we go. Welcome to the Build Different podcast with
Excellent.
David Weiss and myself, Sam Weiss. We're glad you're here today. Let's see here. Let's start with we're going to introduce ourselves a little bit. That's what we're going to do. Or I'm going to introduce an aspect of us that we haven't talked about at length yet, and that is that we are both
Brothers.
dads. We're brothers. That is true. That is true. We are brothers. We are also dads of larger families. We'll say that. So David has 11 kids, and I have 6, expecting number 7 in January.
Lucky number 7.
Lucky number 7. It's gonna be good. We're excited. So the topic for today's discussion is more family oriented, and that is one of chores in the family. And reasons for doing chores as families, maybe approaches for organizing chores, and what we've learned over the years in attempting to teach our children how to work. So David, I'll let you start out with, when you think of like chores and families, they're actually quick story. I have a friend who his wife maybe 5 years ago was super into like the parenting blog space, and she ran a parenting blog, and it was growing and doing well. And she wrote an article about kids doing chores and got major backlash. The people were
Wait,
like,
from the
no,
kids?
no, from parents. How dare
What?
you? How dare you? Have your kids work. How dare you have your kids do chores? That type of backlash. She was surprised. I'm equally surprised. But tell me, as we get started, maybe what are some of your thoughts around, what is the case to be made for why chores are an important part of a family, important part of the human development? What are your thoughts there?
Well, I think it centers around this idea that work is like important and for a healthy life. The idea that ease and consumption are the like optimal experience, I think, is evil and unhelpful. It teaches people to believe that the most optimal life condition is one where you don't have any struggles and you just sit there and eat or consume whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I just like deeply disagree with that, both from my lived experience and also I think the faith traditions back that up. And so that I think is like the first kind of piece to it, is like, do you actually believe that work, like a lot of people have bought into this idea that like really the best life is a life where you let's hire the robot so you don't have to do any hard work. Manual labor is lame and you shouldn't do that. You should have um like there's this idea that blue collar is lame and white collar is better because it's easier, because you get paid more for less, or whatever the thing. I just think that's all bogus. And I think as I've looked internationally, you see young people or older people working hard long days, and there's something redeeming in that. There's something wonderful about that. There's something, and I will just say, like, as a side note, I think it's important that the kids get the idea that like um, it's working hard on something that's meaningful, that's adding value to the world, is honorable and good, and like that's not a bad thing. You need to add value to the world. I guess that's the like from a purely economic perspective. It's like, are you just going to be a giver or a taker? Are you going to be a leech on society, or are you going to add something of value to it? And I guess those are all like moral beliefs of mine that make up the whole idea around should your kids work. Um, yeah, I think there's another thing that I saw. So there was a time when we lived in this area of, like, just call it suburban America, and what I noticed working with the teenagers and young people in our neighborhood is that everyone was kind of soft. Like They were kind of
Mm-hmm.
like wimpy, like asking them to do anything with just the most gentle challenge to it was like, oh no, this is so hard, and it's like, you don't, like, what are you talking about? This is not hard. Um, and I, I don't want to. I want to be like too judgmental because probably for them, given their background training and like kind of the cultural currents that they were swimming in, yeah, it probably was hard. Like it probably was like on the upper end of their capacity. But I just didn't want that to be a part of our existence. I remember when our oldest daughter came home from high school one time, and she's like, "Dad, all of my, this friend got this car for their like 16th birthday. This car got this car, like everyone was getting cars, and she was like mad at me for not like getting her a car. Now, give her a break. Like she's a teenager, her brain's not fully developed and all that stuff. But like genuinely, she was like, "What's the deal? Why don't I have my car?" And I'm like, "Sweetie, when you want a car, you should buy a car for sure. Like this is not something you're getting." And you know, I don't know. I just feel like when you understand how the world works in a kind of like give and take kind of way, I think it's more healthy. Expect it. Now she's grown up. She has right now. She's in college and she has this beater car. In fact, she just called me today about it. She's like, the thing's falling to pieces. It's like almost 300,000 miles, but it's all that she can afford, and she's happy for that it works mostly, except for when it breaks down and then she has to pay for it. And I think that's important too. So I don't know. I feel like there's a personal responsibility aspect to this that is like central, and I think there's also like a community component to it. It's like when you're a part of a group, like that's both a blessing and a responsibility. And so, yeah, you get a benefit from the family things, but that also comes with it a responsibility to help out with the family things. And I think that the reason why I think that's important is I think it translates to community. I think it translates to, being a citizen. It's like, hey, you're a part of the United States, and that's a blessing, but also there's a responsibility there, a civic responsibility. And what is that? And let's talk about that. And what would you sacrifice for that? Because it is a blessing. We live in, arguably, the most prosperous and freest country in the world. That should make people happy, and if that makes them happy, I think they should say that. Well, there's something to that. I think there's also like, um, there's a story in the Bible that I've always loved, and it's about Abraham, and his wife dies, and he's going to get he's meeting with the I'm guessing the sheiks or the tribal leaders around. And he's wanting to purchase this piece of land, where I've been there actually in the burial site there, and he's trying to purchase this land, and all of the let's call them sheiks or lords or they're like, oh no, Abraham, we're friends, we'll just give it to you. And he's like, no, you're not giving this to me. I'm paying for it, and I'm paid for a fair price. And there was something in that when I first read that story as a kid. There was something in that was like, oh, Abraham's not gonna get something for nothing. Like it was like an affront to his honor that he would get something for nothing. And I think that was inspiring to me, and I think a lot of that has been lost in modern society, where it's like, oh yeah, like get as much as you can for as little as you can, and like screw the other guy, that's fine, and all the better if you can get something for nothing. And I just like those are all things that I'm just like, I guess, morally opposed to. And as a consequence, I'm trying to build up a system with our children that kind of inculcates or teaches this idea of personal responsibility, a connectedness to the group, and responsibility for the greater good, the broader set of humanity. Anyway, that was a little bit of a tirade, but there you go. Those are my thoughts.
That was good. That was good. Um, One of the things that comes to mind as you were talking was about I think you kind of mentioned this, the lie that happiness comes from ease and consumption. the lie that you don't want to go work hard for something. You want to end up in a place where you get everything for nothing, or you don't have to work hard. And it makes me think of actually Mike Rowe. Are you familiar with Mike Rowe? Mike Rowe Works.
Yes,
Yeah, Dirty
100%.
Jobs,
Love.
right? So
Yeah, totally.
so one of the things he talked about in the Dirty Job show and the follow-on show, and meeting all of these hardworking Americans, is he to the man, these individuals that were like the garbage men, that were the sewer men, that were like the farmers. He's like, not only are they all extremely wealthy, they are so happy. He's like, these people, you would never know it, that like they're wealthy and happy because they're shoveling, poop every day. But that hard work gives them value. Like, it gives them meaning, and it allows them to provide for their family, and they feel a lot of fulfillment in helping those in their community in these examples. Anyways, and so we have been sold a lie that happiness comes through easing consumption, that happiness comes through, getting something for nothing. And the reality is that fulfillment and happiness comes through um, working at something and helping those around
That's a
you.
part of it. It's a core part of it, I
Yeah,
believe.
yeah. Anyway, so obviously chores is one of those ways that we attempt to introduce that to the children, right, where they can experience participating in the community, um, where they can experience not getting everything for nothing, right? Participating in the functions and the operations of a household, and develop some work ethic, things that will help them in adulthood. I think of like what a disservice is done when a child um isn't required to contribute, and then all of a sudden they end up as an adult, and uh they think that they should continue to get that everyone should just give them their stuff for not having done anything, and they think that like they deserve it. And
Yeah, the
what
entitlement
a
is.
yeah,
Yeah.
just what a disservice to them, and it's a shame. um
Well, I think it's more than a shame because it's. You have to ask yourself, like, you know, nature and nurture are both at play here, but like, as a parent, you have, I think, a responsibility and an opportunity to train up a child in a way that will like optimize for the most positive outcome. And so what you have to kind of, like, I think Lana and this is really sad we're having this discussion without our wives here because we've got
I
to figure out how to
know,
get them on this podcast.
I
But like
know.
you have to ask yourself, what do I want? Like, what's my goal at the end of this? At the end of 18 summers, what do I what exists? And our Lana and I look at it and we're like, and especially as we've compared and contrasted and seen other like products, and I don't want to make the, I mean, you've got different kids, and I don't want to make any parent feel like dissatisfied, like they're sucking and their kids are terrible and it's all their fault. I mean, Lana and I feel that we've passed on all kinds of baggage to our children, and we're still trying, But here's the thing: do you want a soft follower or do you want a strong leader? What does the world need right now? Soft followers or strong leaders? Lana and I are like, no, strong leaders, strong leaders. And so, like, if you start there, you're like, you back up from that, and you're like, well, it's a pain in the butt to be a leader. You got to do things you don't want to do. You've got to make yourself mind yourself when it sucks, and that's a key component to leadership. And I think that's part of the thing you teach when you have your kids do chores. They're like, I don't want to do the chores, and it's like, yeah, that's right. You don't. Just live in that. Feel that. Just feel that. That's great. Now let's go do the chores. A lot of life is like that. It's okay.
Yeah. I you also kind of alluded to this idea of it contributing to the development of good citizens, and
Yeah, for sure.
I think that that's another great part of it. If everything from like the skill development that can happen, right? Like these kids that help with dinner, or help with laundry, or help with the yard work. Um, they're going to have these skills with them for the rest of their lives that they can cook their own food when they're on their own, or married, or having kids, versus not being able to cook. I know, or my wife has mentioned several of her friends of her age, like, still don't know how to cook. Like, and struggle to follow, basic recipes.
But you know what?
And
You know what yes, that's a thing.
I just that's like, there are opportunities. We have a thing right now where um during the week the kids rotate as helpers for different meals. And sometimes, they help, sometimes they don't, but they help enough that they can get around the kitchen and follow recipes. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful to my wife. I'm grateful that my wife puts in all of that effort, because let me tell you,
It's it's a struggle. It's a struggle. Easier
it's
to just do it sometimes. Absolutely. I got to tell you this fun story. So years back, our oldest daughter was about to graduate high school. It was her junior year, and I'm like, this is the time. It's the last time. Just once she graduates, that's the beginning of our family size, you know, going smaller and smaller as they're off to doing their things. So I'm like, okay, we got to do a motorhome trip. Get a big motorhome. Sleeps 9 adults. We have enough littles that we can pack them in. We go and visit all 48 states. So we're starting this, and my daughter, my oldest daughter, she was like a little bit sore about missing her junior year, or part of her junior year, and like, so she was complaining. And she was complaining to Lana about the food. You can only store, for our family size, you can only store a week's worth of food in the motorhome. So every week we're like parking it in the nearest Costco or Walmart or whatever, and then doing the shopping. So my daughter's like complaining to Lana, and she's like, "Oh yeah, okay. Next week you're on. You're buying the food. You're making the menu, and you shop." So she's like, "Okay, yeah, I will." It's this like sassy pants response. So next Saturday when we load up the motorhome, we park it in the parking lot, and off goes Rachel, and she's gonna buy the home. So she has a budget, she's got a menu, and she goes and figures it out. And she comes home exhausted, comes to the motorhome, but in the parking lot, exhausted from this like shopping trip that I think took like 3 hours. Like, oh, that was way harder. And then she makes it anyway. So then that week she's having to do all of that, and I'll tell you what, she grew up a little bit. Towards the end of the week, our next son in line, she's like, "This is the worst. We've had the worst food all week." It's just like complaining. And he didn't see this coming, right? But then Rachel's like, "Oh yeah, well next week you do it," just like parroting mom. And then no, it gets so then he has to go do it. He has to shop, menu the whole thing, and we have a different. Then at close to the end of that week, the next son in line, Grant, is like, "This is the worst meal everywhere." And Michael's like, "Next time," it just keeps going. So we went all the way down to Isaac. Isaac's like, I think 8 at this time. He prepares the menu. His solution for the menu was like nonstop cold cereal. Like, I think that's all we ate that week. We had like, okay, we need to intervene a little bit. But anyway, I just think it's good for that. Like, that's a very healthy, like, understanding. And you know what? After Isaac complained, no one else complained. So like everyone like kind of like, okay, we're not gonna, perpetuate this.
Let's get mom back in the driving seat and have
yeah,
some
it's
real
like
food.
I think we probably need to work on the nourishment side of things. But I just think that is a great example of like, it's easy to complain about things until you have to do them, and that's an important lesson. And so like you can complain about certain things, but getting into things. I remember growing up. So our family, 11 kids, and I remember us going through so many different routines. Like I feel like every month someone in the family, and we have very strong independent parents who has very strong independent children. And so every week someone had something about like, I don't like, this isn't fair, I don't like. So my mom and dad were constantly rotating, and I've experienced the same thing with our family. But I think it's worth talking about some of the different things you've tried and that worked and what's not worked and what you're doing now. Like tactically, what do you like? What's working well? What do you think about in your family could be better, could be worse? Like, let's get tactical, because we've been high level about
Yeah.
the virtue of work and teaching your children to work. But what does it like tactically look like?
Well, for us, what we have found, um, is that first of all, we like to have a place where there's a lot of work to do. So we try to do these homesteading things, and the positive there is there's no shortage of things that need to be done, and then we get to divide that up amongst the kids. So we have chores that are done in the morning.
Okay, let's just pause on this. So you are deliberately creating work.
Yeah, this is. I mean, this
I
is
just like,
probably
let's
something.
let that settle in.
Hey, I learned from the best. I'm pretty sure you were the one who or who taught me this, who like years ago, and I laughed about it, and now I understand it better. But yes, like when we moved to this property where we have, an acre and a half, it's not very much, but it's enough to do chickens and a pig and a large garden and like, these other experiments. Um, it's awesome, right? And so like a good example of right now, Claire, so my 10-year-old, she's responsible for the chickens. Everything chickens. Literally, I don't pay for the feed. Like she runs the chickens. She sells the eggs, she raises the chickens. We just incubated them. She got the incubator going. Like she
Nice.
does the chickens 100% on her own. And it's awesome. And Simon right now he has a rabbit. He raises that rabbit and sells the cold manure, the rabbit, for fertilizer for gardens. Um, anyways, um, but those animals offer these kids opportunities to, have more work. So we have morning chores. Uh, well, we have morning routines, which are like the normal get up, get dressed, tidy your room, whatever, make your bed. That we're kind of hit and miss. We try to do that. Morning chores are, for the older kids, it's like tend to the animals. For the younger kids, it's pretty light. Um, the big one for us is after dinner chores, where we divide up the house into zones, and each child has a zone, and we rotate every single day. And what we have found is the daily rotation um, reduces the amount of fairness whining that happens.
Oh my goodness, that's so interesting. So the daily rotation helps with the fairness issue.
Yes, because this is why. Because inevitably the zones are not evenly like the way
They're not equal.
they're not equal. One or two of them are substantially more
By the way,
difficult than the
I just
others.
want to pause this for our two viewers. The fairness doctrine is the most complicated thing about managing chores. Like the worst, the like it is horrible because everyone has a different definition for it, and it's like the constant. So that fact that you somehow like threaded the needle on this one, I just want to call this out as like truly
Th-
like we should pay deep attention to this.
this is what I think is happening. Um, so growing up, we often rotated quarterly. You talked about, mom and dad.
Quarterly, monthly, weekly, it changed all over, but yeah.
Well, most of my growing up, it was quarterly, sometimes monthly. And
Yeah,
what happens is,
dad thought that was like stability for the fairness thing. It was like you could master the skill, and like you knew what to expect the next day. So the disruption was minimal.
what it seems like happens is when you're rotating chores at those intervals, there's this incredible upheaval that happens in that transition, one. And two, during the duration of the quarter or the month, the person who has the easier job is like sitting pretty all happy. And the one who has like the perceived more difficult job is complaining the whole time. Anyways, what we have found is we rotate daily. And so there are 5 kids who are involved in this out of the 6. The 2-year-old is not yet. There are 5 zones. Every day you get a new zone. And what happens is, like, the kids know that, they have a hard zone today, but tomorrow they're going to get an easier one. And the one that has the easier zone, like, they're enjoying it, but they know that the next day they're going to have a harder one. And for our kids, it ends up the older kids rotate through the harder zones more frequently. And because they're older and more capable. And then the other thing that we do that has seemed to help is the parents, we divide up to support the younger kids. So usually one of us is helping at the kitchen because it's one of the big chores and the dishes and things like this. And then the other one is pairing up with, the 4-year-old or the 6-year-old, and, and supporting them as they're learning. So that's worked well for us from a tactical standpoint. We've been doing this for several years now. We still like it. And the kids get a lot of reps in all the different activities, like from wiping the table to vacuuming to sweeping, or whatever it is, because they get to do it on a very, no frequent basis. So that's let's see here. That's evening chores, and we do evening chores right after dinner, with, like, almost without fail. And then there's, like, evening routine stuff. But what do you guys
That's
do?
awesome. Oh man, we've done so many different things. I think my first, like, Lana has. This is why she should be on this pod. Like, we need to have to
I
do like
know.
an addendum to this
We
because
will. We will.
this is not fair. But um, Lana, I mean, just to be frank, the way we've so here's some general principles. One is um, checking up on the chores that they actually get done. Like, it's here. I'm going to share with all the things that are difficult, and like all the things, all the struggles. I don't have clarity on way. I've done a lot of things wrong. We've done a lot of things wrong in trying to solve this. My first, my first like real exposure to this was when our first set of twins came, and I was in
Wait,
charge
can we
of the
just pause
house.
at that remark? Our first set of twins. Yes, you heard that right.
Okay,
Because that
yes.
implies there was a second set of twins.
This is true.
Just
This is
wanted to
true. This
pause it.
this was a very strenuous part of our. Lana and I both thought we would die. Honestly, we had 2 sets of twins back to back, and it is awesome now. But those initial years were extremely demanding, and
Yeah.
there's like no sleep. Just yeah, it was just super demanding. Anyway, let's not go into that story. But the
Indeed.
general gist is that first set of twins. Um, Lana was busy taking care of the twins, nonstop, full stop. Like, and I was trying to take care of her, but really, I had like I think I had a month off of work, and to kind of like help. And day one, I'm like, what the heck is going on? Like I had no clue how much was involved. And so I started doing all kinds of things like taking notes. Like I did a whole bunch of geeky stuff. Like I created a spreadsheet with every item in our house itemized. Like, I'm trying to like where is all this mess going on? Spoiler alert, it's all about the clothes. The clothes is dominant. The dominant issue in our family is clothes. You may be like, it might be like, roller skates for you, but in our family, it's like shoes, socks, clothes, jackets. That is the issue. We still haven't solved that. But anyway, I end up writing beginning of I do software development as a part of my career, and so I wrote an iPad app, and I put it up there, and everyone go in and like tab, and that was not helpful. I Right now what we're doing, Lana is really, Lana is really managing the current setup. She switches every week, and she manages it. And I would say, from my observation, then like one of the things I really want out of a chore system is a chore system that self maintains without having mom or dad to constantly check on a job partially done, and then like the management overhead of checking everyone's chores like consistently, and then them trying to like, you know, cut corners and not really get the job done. Especially this occurs towards the end of the week when they know a transition is at play. And so they're like, that's, I'd say, a big load for a lot of, this was especially challenging. Now, our youngest is 5 now. But when our youngest, when the littles, we call them, the 2 sets of the twin and the last 2 caboose, like, that when they were really young, basically it was Lana and the olders, 4, 5, depending on how you want to count that, doing all the work. And if I wasn't there, then it was just Lana. And then like if your job is just to verify that the work was done appropriately, that's a full-time job. But that takes mom out of the equation in terms of like work production. Mm-hmm. And so then it's just the 4 kids, and then and then the 6 littles are like making mess as fast as the 4 kids. I mean, faster than the 4 kids cleaning the mess. And then the 4 kids cleaning the mess are like, this is insane. I just cleaned this up. They kind of get these parental, comments. I just cleaned this up 2 minutes ago. And, the twins are running around like little mayhem and saying, woo, let's throw stuff around. So I very difficult depending on the age of your kids. What we do is after every, I was trying to contain one of the principles that I eventually found is that you need to be comfortable with mess and then clean, mess and then clean. It's like breathing out, breathing in, breathing out, breathing in. And so because early on what we were trying to do is like tidy up as you go, and that in our experience was unmaintainable. I mean, you're still trying to teach clean up after yourself, but ultimately the you would have to literally be following around your kids everywhere, and then when you have 11 of them all moving throughout the house, it's just impractical. And so maybe when you have a smaller family, that's more realistic. But I feel like the conclusion was after our rhythm is after every meal, and every meal, Lana does a great job of this since the motorhome trip. All the kids make meals. So all the meals are made by our children all the time. And this is our 10-year-olds are making meals. And sometimes they're pretty simple, and you might feel a little bit hungry after. But that is that. So make the meals, and after every meal we do chores. And there's a little bit more flexibility after the lunch meal. Sometimes chores don't happen after lunch. And that's kind of we just that's okay. But definitely chores after breakfast, and definitely chores after dinner. And then between those times, if the house gets messy, it gets messy. And we just count it a win that building and creating and playing and all that stuff that creates mess is happening, and that's a win. But then nighttime, and also sometimes we just sometimes it gets late at night and we're just no, the important thing for human sanity of the parents is that we go to bed right now. So we're just time out.
100%.
We just go to bed and it's messy, and then we pick it up. We fix that in the next morning. So not as rigorous as what you're talking about, but sometimes they do. Sometimes they do better.
I do think that what you just demonstrated was a sense of flexibility, and that 100% happens with us too. Whether it's there are evenings where the house we go to bed and the house is a mess. There are other evenings when the 4-year-old's assigned to the dining room and the table does not get wiped. Well,
yes,
yeah,
or
the
dad,
table does not get wiped. The table gets smeared. And,
yes.
And sometimes that means that mom and dad come back and fix it. And other times we just shrug and go to bed. And it's going to
That's
get
right.
cleaned in the morning, or it's going to get cleaned, the next evening or whatever, right? And those little kids, if a parent can help them do the job for whatever reason, maybe the job doesn't get done as well. And then the expectations for that's the other thing that we have found that helps with the daily rotations is because in the average of the week, that zone is going to get a reasonable clean at least twice, right? Whereas the other times, the younger kids, the expectations are a little bit more relaxed, and it's not going to get quite as good.
Yeah, it's funny because like um, we have we have a bunch of boys and girls, but we have a bunch of little boys, and one of the challenges we're facing right now is they're like little puppy dogs. What's that poem? What are boys are made of? Like snails and bats and puppy dog tails. I mean, like that's our boys, and one of the challenges is if we put any Lana chooses, they don't there's not a rotation, there's not a pattern. Every week she chooses authoritatively where people are going to be. And part of that analysis is segregating like how distant is Adam going to be from Seth, is going to be from Isaac, from Daniel, because because if they're close by, it's like squirrel, and then they're bashing on each other, rolling around on the ground. We're like, stop, do your chore now. And they're like, ugh, and then they get back to it, and then next thing you know, someone throws something, hits them in the head, and then they're back at it. So it's like this game of like, how can we like goof off and not get the chore done? It's super frustrating.
Yeah.
But that's just part of the joys of like working through that. I will tell you, one of the like we have a son who's serving a mission for our church in Africa, Congo actually, and he got there, and he was like super struggling, and he's struggling to cook there, like to as these missionaries they have to make their own food, buy their own food, and they're buying from native sources, and it's a different, like, let's just say there's no Costco's there, okay? Um, and he was struggling to like put it together, and called us, and we started, we helped him, and he's doing well now, but like it was an adjustment. Anyway, so I help out with my son's young men's program in church, and we talked about this, and one of the young men leader, the boy, he's like, you should teach us how to make food. So he on Sunday, last Sunday, he called me up. He's like, how about you teach us how to make food? So I got on ChatGPT, and I'm like, most common ingredients found worldwide, wherever you go, what are the ingredients that can be found in any country in the world? And it'd be what you expected: chicken, and vegetables, and protein. We did potatoes we did potatoes because I felt like that was more. But different areas of the country. We talked about protein, vegetables, and a starch or carbohydrate. But anyway, brought them over, and we had 6 boys cooking all at the same time. Some on the outside camp chef, and some on the inside stove, and it was super fun. And most of it didn't taste so good, but they had fun, and they learned how to cut and chop and prepare, and some of them learned that putting on too many seasonings is a net loss, and just all kinds of things. These are things you just have to like wade through. So I think part of the deal is that if you're gonna engage in teaching young people, whether it's your 2-year-old or your 10-year-old or your 20-year-old, something, you kind of have to, like, Lana and I often say to each other, 12 tellings. And then sometimes we're like, 20 tellings. Like, it's like this idea that you just have to brace yourself for that, where you're going to repeat this and they're not going to hear it like 20 times. I remember one time with Chores, we started this, like I told you, we started this when the first set of twins come. And one of the things we started was like after every meal we did chores. Had a family evening about it, talked about it, kept enforcing it, like do it. This is for like years. then my daughter is like 17, and I got after her because I'm like, we do chores after every meal. That's what we do here, because she was like complaining about something, and she's like, we never do that. That's never been a thing. I'm like, you're look at your twin sisters. They are, how old are they? We've been doing it from that. It's like, how did you miss this for 7 years? But that's part of the kids are long crops, and you just have to keep after it. And everyone, learning, you don't get to enforce learning. What is it like? Things are caught, not taught. You don't get to like jam it down their head and say like, get this. They have to catch it, and if they choose not to catch it, then you're just going to be like fighting for that. So I think there's a big part of this for me is that if you're serious about like developing your kids into hard workers and all these virtues that we were talking about earlier, you've got to like brace yourself for the fact that it's going to take a very long time. Like in our experience, we now have 24-year-old, like, yeah, early 20s, you start to see it working. You're like, oh, that's when the fruit starts coming back, and they're like able to do stuff, and they're like a baby adult, and it's great. Lana and I also consider ourselves baby adults too, but like, actually, I think we decided once our oldest son, he married, we decided we graduated to like toddler adults. So that's like kind of where we are.
Nice. Well, this has been good. I'm a fan for all the reasons we taught. I think it's important that kids get to learn to work, get to develop these skills, and get to prepare for, I guess, adulthood. I guess one other thought that um, that's kind of I've been thinking about in the last several minutes is it has been fascinating to me. Um, in our family, the kids being involved in the operations of the family is like it's the default, and it's always been that way, right?
Mm-hmm.
And uh, as a result, there's a lot of interest as the kids grow in participating in the activities that much of the world calls work, but there's a lot of interest in participating in these activities, whether that is the experience of learning, or whether that is to be able to model their mother or their father. Like uh, they enjoy doing these things. Now, that probably is more, relative to like preparing meals and less to like washing the dishes. Although even the younger ones that don't have a lot of experience washing dishes, they get pretty excited to help wash the dishes. Then eventually that wears off, and they're no longer excited to wash the dishes. But I think that as parents, as we strive to model these behaviors that we want our kids to take to heart and to emulate, um they have some natural desires to do the things they see their parents doing. And yes, the novelty wears off, and then they start complaining at some age. But it's been fascinating to me how much my kids ask to participate in these activities, labor intensive activities or difficult activities. They ask to participate in these because they want to be with a parent, because they want to do the work of their parents, and emulate that. And I think that's pretty cool. Last word to you, David.
Oh, I think there's real truth to that. I mean, um, we we often talk about to our children about like we want you to learn, to the boys, we want you to learn how to be a man, and not a boy, a man. And to the girls, we want you to learn how to be a woman, not a girl, a woman. And we have some ideas about what that might mean, and we hope they're founded and stand the duration of time. It's helpful to have some scriptural and theological basis in that, but that that creates, I think, in them a little bit of like, well, what does a man do? In our family, this is not man or woman, but in our family, an example of like that is we have our home is this old. We live up here in the mountains of Wyoming, and we have 4.5 acres, and it's very rural. And our home is heated by fire. Like there's a stove in the central part of the home, and if that thing's on, then it's the house warms up, and if that thing's not running, the house cools down. And um, typically the fire burns out overnight, and so we wake up and it's cold. And then the question is like, if you're cold, so like this morning, Lana and I were talking, and the kids were not up yet. But then all of a sudden we heard a pitter patter, and one of our 10-year-old sons went down there, and he was cold, so he started the fire. The day earlier, our 6-year-old said, "Dad, I'm cold. Can I start a fire?" I'm like, "Yeah, go for it." And he did. He started the fire. He understands how to do that, and it's just cool to see that kind of like cause and effect develop in them. One of the things, though, I mean, we burned through a lot of wood. It's a long winter, 6 months of snow, 7 feet of snow where we are. And so it's a long winter. And so we have to put basically, let's just say 10 cord of wood. And this year, we harvest that from the dead wood in the forest nearby, the National Forest land. There's a ton of dead wood. And it's just a family activity, and everyone like has to participate. And yeah, they get annoyed, and like there's some complaining and rancor, but by the same token, they're all like, yeah, it's like really important to have wood because it gets really cold, because it gets as cold as -20 down here in parts of the winter. And when the spring comes and it's only 30 degrees, everyone's out there in shorts and t-shirts. They've so adjusted to the temperature shift. But I feel like that is like emblematic of what you're after, is that the chores make sense. They make sense because it's what it means to live. Things don't come for free. Things come because there was effort involved. We have a neighbor who says, because when you heat your home with wood, the wood warms you 3 times. Once when you cut the wood, once when you split it, and then once when you make the fire with it. And I don't know. I'm not saying everyone has to obviously heat their home with wood, but I think the idea of making sure that there's chores that make sense, that connect with reality. I remember, and this is what you said earlier, I guess maybe we'll close with this, but we were talking, and I remember this one guy saying, when I was growing up, I thought my dad was staying up late at night just thinking about what he could make me do for work, and just thinking about chores he could give to me. And now that I'm a dad, that's exactly what he was doing. That's exactly what he was doing. Keeping your kids engaged in meaningful activity turns out to be a very important activity if you wanted to train up, responsible adults. And so that's going to mean something different for a family that lives in a city than it does for us in the mountains. But the general idea, I think, is true. You want them engaged in things that make sense and add value to the world, and whether it's very localized to themselves, making their bed, or more expansive, like making a meal for your family, or broadly doing something for the community. All of that, I think, is helpful and good for humanity. So that's what I'll say.
I like it. Well, we absolutely will have to do a round 2. I'm almost embarrassed to publish this without my spouse involved. But this was a topic that's been on my mind, and as we continue to fight the good fight around this.
That's right. And that's what it is.
Anyways, it's been a good discussion, and thanks for joining the Build Different podcast. We'll see you again next Friday.
Later.